Welcome to the Unstoppable Mum Summit 2020, where an amazing panel of expert women will share their secrets and their wisdom on how to find your motivation, your energy, and your unique purpose through the craziness of motherhood, marriage, work, and wellness. I'm Sarah Reinberger. I'm an occupational therapist. I'm a mother of two mini ladies, a coach, and a business owner. And for the second year in a row, I'm your host for this amazing event. And today I'm speaking to the very vibrant Dana B. Myers. Dana is an award-winning entrepreneur, an author, and a media personality in the sexual wellness space. Known for her frank yet empowering style, she helps mothers reclaim their vitality, their sensuality, and their sexual satisfaction through her products, coaching practice, and digital courses. After becoming a mother herself, she felt a deep need to reintegrate her sensuality within the reality of her life as a mum, and quickly realized the importance of nurturing her marriage within the time-strapped, often chaotic experience of parenthood. And she documented her journey and created a step-by-step roadmap for other mums to do the same in her second book, The Mummy Mojo Makeover, 28 Tools. Love it.
Here it is.
I love it. That's fantastic. 28 tools to reclaim your sensuality and reignite your relationship. She is all the way over in Miami with her husband and business partner, Charlie, and their two beautiful kids, Rocky and Indy, ages 9 and 6. Got to mention the kids. It's really important. And today I'm thrilled to talk with Dana about the pleasurable path of motherhood. Welcome, Dana.
Thank you for having me, Sarah. It's so nice to be here. Before we get started, my daughter, my 6-year-old, bought me this crystal yesterday with her allowance money. And she said, Mom, will you show it tonight? So just before we get started, I'm showing it. Indy, this is for you. Love you. Thank you.
Indy, what an amazing, thoughtful little girl you've got, right?
Yeah, she is. She is. Hi, so good to be here. Let's talk about all things sensual and sexual and juicy and alive, even in motherhood.
Yes, please. I would absolutely love that. Can you start with a little bit about you and your pathway to this amazing career as well that you've built for yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I had a career in the music business before this, but my true passions growing up were always beauty and sensuality and female empowerment. My mom was a makeup artist, is a makeup artist. So I really grew up tagging along with her in the beauty shop, watching women look at themselves in the mirror and immediately start criticizing themselves, but then working with my mom with makeup and that girlfriend to girlfriend conversation and literally witnessing empowerment happen in the flesh. So I was just that girl who was hungry and curious for all things feminine and also all things sexy. And I thankfully grew up in a home where my parents talked to us about sex and acknowledged us as sexual beings in a way of just talking to us to give us values and boundaries while also really honoring our natural state as humans, right? So long story short, I was bored with the music business. I thought, what do I really love? I love beauty. I love sex. I love female empowerment and sex toys. Let's start a brand. I started a beauty parlor 15 years ago. And, from a business standpoint, we have been on such a journey, trying different business models, really just because I know there's entrepreneurial women watching this. So if you look at her and go, how did she get successful? It's a long journey. So let me just say that, okay? Business and motherhood, it's a long ride. It's a long haul. Anyhow, along the course of my career, I've written 2 books, run hundreds of workshops around sensual empowerment and open conversation about these topics. And then when I had my children, like it was the first time in my whole life that my sex drive was nowhere to be found. And my vitality was nowhere to be found. And it was depressing for me. And I thought, like, I'm not going down with this ship. I mean, I really got a little pissed off, you know, and that's one thing that moms don't really talk about is the rage, the anger that we have, right? When we become mothers, we gain so much, but it would be silly for us to not acknowledge that we also lose certain things. There's an identity shift that happens. I mean, what do you feel about that?
I think you are just on the money about that. Exactly. And we do not talk about what it is we leave behind when we move into this new space. And you hear so much about, oh, motherhood, it's just so wonderful and we're so fortunate. And yes to all of those things, but there is a darker side to that in lots of realms, and how our relationships change and how we relate to our partner and how we relate to ourselves and who am I now? Absolutely.
All of that. All of the identity crisis, resentment within your relationship, loss of libido, you know, where's my me time gone? A romantic disconnect when you become such great partners in parenting, but then the attraction really cools, and that's a normal part of it. But you're like, ooh, this is like forever's a long time. What are we going to do about this? So I experienced all of that, and I said, no way. And really kind of slowly, but very systematically, I'm a Capricorn. So my lists, organization, grounded, let's make this practical. Let's get this done. Every day I just started doing something small, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes to put pleasure back into my life. And that just doesn't mean just sexual pleasure. That means pleasure in doing things just for me. Pleasure in being out in the world and engaging with the world as an adult, interacting with, you know, vibing with people's energy. Pleasure in food. Finding ways, this one was really hard for me. This took me a long time. Finding ways to find pleasure in domestic chores. Like, I honestly, and I'm such a pleasure queen. I'm all about my orgasms, my self-pleasure, my moments with myself every week. I put it in my calendar. When I'm going to masturbate, we'll get to that. But I never thought that I could find true pleasure in the domestic chores, but with practice. So like when you're folding laundry, right? I hate it. Do you hate it? Do you hate it? I hate it.
Yes, I do.
I've been able to, it's a hashtag, put some pleasure on it. So to put some pleasure on that situation as a busy mom, when I'm folding the laundry, if it's hot and warm, out of the dryer, I'm going to press that towel up against my body. I'm going to close my eyes for a couple seconds, and I'm going to feel into that warmth. I'm going to feel into that texture against my skin. That is sensual living, pausing within the chaos and the mundane aspects, both the chaos and the mundane, because it's both. It's both those extremes often at once, right? Motherhood.
Exactly.
Pausing and tuning in and going, oh, that feels good on my skin. Oh, what does that remind me of? You know, and allowing yourself to go off into a little fantasy, even if it's a micro fantasy for 10 seconds. It's making a choice to put more pleasure within every aspect of your life. And then suddenly, whether it's doing the dishes and the steam comes out and you're like, I'm in a sauna naked with Brad Pitt. You know, like it's a different guy every time I open that dishwasher. Okay. I swear to God. Now when I sweep the floor, I bought this beautiful straw broom, and now I'm just sweeping out the negative energy. So now I went from being irritated, why are there always so much crumbs, to actually moving the negative energy with my body and with this broom. So it's about being in your body. And that's how I rebuilt. That's how I rebuilt myself, my joy, my libido, my lust for life again, and for sex, right? Because there's the sex part of it too. We forget that we like it.
We do.
Like, I don't need it, and I want it. I don't need it. I'm fine. Well, okay, cool. Yes, you're fine. But what are you missing? It's great that you're fine, but what are you not accessing by putting sex on the back burner? Connection, wild orgasms, you know, the beautiful kind of spiritual and sacred process that you can have with yourself when you masturbate, which can fill you up and just be the rocket fuel, just rocket fuel. That pleasure is your rocket fuel, that time with yourself. So from a personal standpoint, you know, a woman can make a date with herself once a week. You know, I know you can find 5 or 10 minutes. Like, how often do you write in your calendar, you know, pleasure myself? I write it every week because I write down everything else in my life. I write down everything else, each project, all the bullet points, everything for the house, everything for the groceries, what I'm cooking, what I'm exercising. But yet we don't apply that same attention to our sex lives and relationships. It's like we've forgotten what our true nature is, and our true nature is sexual.
Can I ask you a question?
Go ahead. I'm just yapping.
Great. I love it. I could listen to you all day, seriously. But if we know, and I don't want to make the presumption that all women have experienced, you know, pleasure in sex either, because, you know, that cannot be true. Okay. Right. But even for those women that have experienced amazing orgasms, and, you know, then we move into motherhood. Why do we forget, or why do we then not put effort into that part? Or why is that something, you know, we can still get up and maybe go to the gym every day and look after ourselves in that way, but why don't we look after ourselves in this way?
Well, a couple of reasons. It can, of course, in the beginning be hormonal, and that can carry on, or we just get used to the behavioral aspects of that hormonal shift in us. And then even when our hormones come back, we're just like a little bit conditioned to the new way. It's really easy to feel all touched out. Not just when they're little, you know, just need some space. So by the time you're finally done with the kids, you're in a space of depletion mentally and physically. And so it's rain check after rain check. I think it's also like, you know, the routine. Okay. So routine and the structure is on the opposite side of the spectrum from like wild erotic fun. Because wild erotic fun is new and novel and thrilling, and it's a surprise. But like doing the routine every day and like seeing your husband or partner every day, it's like, okay. So there's that lack of electric charge. But here's where the problem is. When that electric charge settles or plateaus, you think, oh no, it's just gone forever. There's nothing I can do about it. And that's not true. You can fall in love and fall in lust like a million times again and again with your partner, but it takes energy and effort. But the payoff is so worth it. You know, the payoff is so worth it. Once you just like cross that little hill, you're like, what was I waiting for? Why wasn't I masturbating once a week? Why wasn't I scheduling sex and making it really high quality? Because when you schedule sex, even once a week, you're showing up. You have something to look forward to. As a couple, you have something to plan together, think about together, brainstorm together. What energy do we want? What do I want to wear? How are we going to do this? How are we going to get the kids down? How do I manage my energy so that I can show up with enthusiasm? You know, it's like you have to be a little strategic.
And so when you have this conversation with women, when you work with women around this stuff, do you have women that are saying, oh, I can't imagine my partner doing that. I can't imagine he would be thinking about what he might wear or how to be romantic or...
Well, because we've conditioned them to just get the scraps. We've conditioned them to sort of not want to be rejected. And I'm speaking very broadly, and there's a wild spectrum here, okay? So I'm not judging anyone.
No, not at all.
Sort of condition them to be like, well, ask me too much. I'm going to keep going, not tonight. No, it's that. They come up and you're like, it's like that. So and the conversations that you may be having may be very much about the lack. When you talk about sex, it might just be, well, why aren't we having it? That's not a conversation that can be productive, that can move you forward. So you have to be in the zone of communicating first. You want to start those conversations first. What's great about our sex life, or what's what used to be great, what can be better, and how can we, here's the kicker, how can we co-create a really compassionate and exciting sex life that works for us both right now. And the right now is so important because we know that in parenthood, things are always changing, right? One day everything's fine, the next day, like, oh, you find out your kid's on the spectrum. Well, okay, been through that. That sends your relationship, that sends your family dynamic, that's gonna send you into something. So if you keep having this conversation, how do we co-create a sex life that's compassionate and exciting for us right now? Keep having that. Allow things to shift and grow. And the beautiful thing about that is that it takes a lot of the pressure off. Because when one partner is feeling a little bit sex starved, they can get into that zone of feeling like, oh my God, is it going to be this way forever? But if you talk about how things can and will have an ebb and flow, then everybody relaxes. Then everybody knows, okay, we're going to work together to make sure that our needs are both met. And that's a game changer for your relationship. Does that make sense? I'm really ranting.
No, not at all. I was writing madly, furiously while you were talking, actually. I love those 3 conversation points. You know, the what was great when it was great, how can it be better? And how can we co-create a sex life that can work for us now? You know, how can we be, you know, how can it be compassionate and exciting and work for the right now? And I just love that.
And if you bring
dynamic.
up, yeah, it's very dynamic. And so again, to your question, if you bring this up in this way, in this sort of openness, you know, showing your enthusiasm to find solutions together, most partners will be like, yeah, okay. They might feel a little uncomfortable at first or not, might take some time to trust. Like, there is this element of trust. Can I trust that we're going to, like, you know, oh, you've said you wanted sex before, but then it went back to the same thing. Like, you may have a partner that feels, you know, that has absorbed the rejection of a prolonged rut. And you may not have intended to reject them, but we really have to think, you know, what is our partner's experience in this? As mothers, we're all like, we are mother. We think about ourselves and our kids, right? But we often don't give as much weight to how our partner's feeling. We're like, no, we're the ones that have bigger emotions. We do. But like our husbands, you know, they have big emotions and they have needs too, and not just physical needs. You know, they want to be made to feel like the man. They want you to give them opportunities to be your hero, you know? And that's like, a lot of us go around saying, well, we're trying to work, we're trying to mom, we're trying to cook, we're trying to be fit, we're trying to do all these things, you know, I don't have enough help, I'm not getting my need, you know. But like, are you really writing down exactly what you need and then asking for it in a way in which your partner will respond positively to? Like, there's a science there, you know, and it's kind of magical how it works. I think maybe it's more magic than science. I don't know, but it's amazing. It's a really simple tool, and it works like a charm to reduce resentment, to get more help, to really pay attention to your own needs in a very proactive way, not just like I need time to exercise, but like in a way that asks and really like invites your partner to rise up and lead the family by taking on, you know, co-lead the family by taking on some of the things that weigh us down, right? Making things feel more balanced.
Yeah.
That benefits everyone. You become less irritated. You know, they become more aware of all the things that you take on that they don't take on. Again, I'm speaking very broadly here. You know, and I have an incredibly 50-50 partner. I mean, I don't think anything's 50-50, but we each, you know, I feel fully supported. But a lot of it is spelling out the details, you know, and sometimes we're like, ooh, maybe I'm asking too much. And this is like our subconscious talking, right?
Absolutely. But when I think we get into patterns of behavior and we tell ourselves stories in our head about how life should be and what my role as a mother should be or my role in the household should be, and we don't challenge some of those things. So and
Totally.
our partners go along with this and might go with the flow. And you're right, it is about kind of sitting down, assessing some of these things and asking for what we need in the end as
Yeah.
well. And I wonder how this also ties with, I wonder that we get stuck in this day-to-day kind of managing and surviving, and thinking that motherhood is just about surviving today or getting to the end of the week before I can have a weekend. And so we're not actually thinking, what sort of partnership do I want to have in 10 or 20 years? What sort of connection do I want to have with my partner, with me, further down the track? So what is it that I need to be doing and thinking about every day to work towards that?
Yeah. And so I'm just gonna, I know that was a question we should all be asking ourselves, but I'm going to respond to that. And what we should be doing is thinking about ourselves, right? Because if we are feeding ourselves and keeping ourselves alive and juicy and putting pleasure into our bodies and expressing ourselves and giving yourselves time for whatever kind of spiritual practice or magic or woo-woo or whatever it is that feeds your soul in that way, you need the time to do that. You need the time for yoga or kickboxing or whatever you want. You need the time for self-pleasure. You need to give yourself the permission to ditch. It's one of my favorite phrases. I say it all the time, permission to ditch. I have permission to ditch. Do I have to do this? No. Is this going to change my life? Do I need to do this to save my child's life? Like, if I can cross it off my list, I'm going to. And then I'm going to go masturbate.
I feel like I should write that down.
Yeah.
I love that. That's fantastic.
Oh my God. But that's the thing. And I'll tell you why. I'm sorry. I'm going to keep talking.
Just
1 second. Again, this is very broad strokey. You asked, like, what do I need? If I want a healthy marriage in 15, 20 years when we become empty nesters, what do I need to do now? And I responded, you need to nurture yourself and fuel your own sensuality. And I think you have to think about what's the opposite of that, right? You really have to think, like, pleasure is the antidote to pain, right? Connection is, on the opposite side of the spectrum from distance. So by fueling myself, I'm going to fuel our relationship. Just stay juicy.
I love that so much. I do. And, I think we, when the conversation opens up around self-care, we do talk a lot about my physical health and my mental health and my spiritual health. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to work out. I'm going to eat really well and nourish my body. Yeah. We never talk about this bit that sits in the darkness around, ourselves, masturbation, sex, orgasm. We don't talk about this.
The bit that sits in the dark is your pussy. Like, I'm just going to say it. Set her free. Pay attention to what she's saying. Let her have her voice again. She may have gone quiet because you stopped asking her, how you doing, girl? What's going on? How do you feel about this? How do you feel if I touch you this way? Do you want to move? What do you need? How are you feeling? What can we do? Like, how, and I mean, it's our root. It is our root. It is our second brain or our first brain. It's all right there. And I literally, my whole pelvis is like vibrating right now because I just talked to her. She's like, hi, I'm so happy you tuned in, honey. She's like, that's my pussy, everyone. I just channeled her through. Okay. But that's go through your day. Like, I don't know, maybe I sound completely mental, but this is the truth. You asked, like, would I share the truth of how I live? That is the actual truth of how I live. I wasn't born this way. I've nourished this aspect of me my whole life. And that is the result of constant feeding of your own altar of sensuality.
And you know what? It radiates out of you though, right? Your energy and vibrancy, right? And it's a very attractive quality.
Thank you.
And I just wonder about, okay, so if there are women watching this today that are thinking, oh, I'd really like some of that, but that's a bit way out of my comfort zone. I wouldn't know where to start. And how would I do that if I just felt like I can't just start talking to my Ooh, I can't even say the word. Like, and you know, that I think that's a reality in our society that
Yeah,
a lot of women
totally.
feel this way. So where would you start that's not so confronting that might stop us
Yeah.
from taking the next step?
Totally, totally. Thank you for asking that. Look, I think it starts with, where are you in your own body right now? How do you feel about your post-baby body? What's happening? What are you feeling? Are you feeling bloated? Are you feeling loose? Are you feeling off balance because your hips are still out of whack after birth? All of these things. And literally just doing like body scans in the mirror, in your clothes, and just scanning. How do I feel about all these parts? Can I just be present? Okay. Oh, I don't like my boobs right now. One's up here, one's down there. And you use that mothering voice. Yeah, okay. I hear you. One's up there and one's down there. Okay. So noticing where your judgments are, noticing where you're still carrying tightness or disapproval of yourself, just acknowledging that that's okay. You don't have to leap into positive affirmations or masturbating on it. Just know, acknowledge, recognize and be present for yourself. And I think that is really, the kind of little building blocks of building a sensuality practice, because that's the process of becoming embodied and, really feeling in, understanding that this isn't just our heart, it's an energy center. And, and eventually you will come to, get in touch with the energy center that really counts. They all count, but I get it. These ones are sort of easier to work with in the beginning, but just look at yourself, check out where you're criticizing yourself and see if you can just say, okay, I hear you, but I also respect you. I call it my evil twin, right? The one who's like, ugh, like the Dana that's like right here, like work harder, or tone up, or, stop eating so much of that chocolate, and I'm just like, I call her my evil twin. She's not evil, but she's a little mean. And I just turn around and I'm like, you just need a hug? Like, come here. Come
Connection,
here,
right? Connection.
just talking to myself, connecting with myself and learning to love myself. And then eventually that turns into permission to really start exploring more of the self. That's that's like really backpedaling out, out of a sexual practice, but that's okay. I think that it's all part of the practice.
Yeah, exactly. And, just taking those small, maybe safe steps in the start, because I think there's a lot of shame around this kind of area too. Women in general haven't been allowed to talk about their own pleasure in the past.
Yeah, but also like shame should like, you can take ownership of your shame and be like, and I want to be done with you. Let's figure out how to be done with you. Let's figure out how to move through you, take you with me, but like really not take you with me. So if you have shame or embarrassment or trauma, or you feel like this is too much or you don't deserve it or any of the things, you can say, where did I learn that belief? Where did I pick that up? What is the belief? Let me remove my emotions from it for a second and then just figure out, okay, what is the belief? That like good girls don't get like nasty or whatever? Where did I learn that from? I learned it from my mom, or I learned it from the church, or I learned it from here or there. Okay. Do I still believe that's true? Now, as a grown woman, do I believe that's true? No. Does my pussy say yes or no? It says no. It's not true. Okay. Do I feel capable? Am I capable of rewriting that belief? Not can I rewrite that belief right here, right now, but am I just capable of it? Yeah, I'm capable of it. And then that opens the door for you to be like, okay, what's the new belief that I want? That sexual empowerment is really good and positive and normal and natural. Cool. Wow. I just unpacked all my bullshit and opened a new door. And then just keep going through that process until it gets easier and easier and softer and more progress.
Meanwhile, making each moment as pleasurable as you possibly can through the day.
Yeah, totally. Hashtag put some pleasure on it.
I've got that written down. Put some pleasure on it. I love it. It's fantastic. Dana, that is just, I don't know, it's so hopeful and just, I don't know, I feel energized just listening to it. And now I'm thinking to myself, what am I going to do every day in service of my own pleasure? I love it.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. It's so delicious when you get in the habit. You start feeling more and more deserving with every little dose that you give yourself. That, and when you really step into that deservingness, that is amazing. So it's one of the most beautiful things that I'm learning more and more now as I just turned 44. It was an interesting, year of kind of unpacking old beliefs and stepping into beliefs that I thought I was fully stepped into, but wasn't. And deservingness regardless of anything else, regardless of success, regardless of if I fail on a project, regardless of this or that. Like, I'm worthy and deserving. And then you just put pleasure on top of that. And you're like, this is amazing.
That's brilliant. I love it. I love it. Dana, so tell us a little bit more about like how you help women.
Yeah. So, I mean, I help women just by like connecting in this way, I don't know. I think honestly, the best way I could describe myself is like your best girlfriend who talks a lot about sex and makes you feel really good about yourself. But the practical side of that is that I do one-on-one coaching. I have a digital program called The Satisfied Mama, which when you mention like baby steps, it's really like a great framework that baby steps you in and really, allows you to explore and grow into your sensuality and unpack things that are going on in your relationship and overcome a lot of the most common obstacles that we experience as mothers and parents. So there's that. So I'm, creating new things and, seeing what's what.
Beautiful. Plus, of course, your books and my gosh, there's a lot going on, right?
I have a great book. This book is also a great way to get started. It's the Mommy Mojo Makeover. And it's totally bite-sized, 28 little bite-sized tools so you can read while you're like taking your 5 minutes. When you've said, honey, will you watch the kids? I'm going to go read. Again, it just holds your hand through self-love and sex and relationships and identity after birth.
But perfect. Perfect for our audience of women right now, right? As we open the door to this under-talked about, but much needed to be talked about
and
topic.
It's so much fun to talk about it. If we just like leave our hang-ups, leave your hang-ups at the door, just like hang them on the coat rack even for a few minutes. Like everybody can leave their hang-ups out for a few minutes.
I love that. Thank you so much, Dana. This has just been amazing and just energetic and just so hopeful. And I'm certainly grateful there is a woman like you in the sexual wellness space, that's for sure. And as Dana had said, for women out there, if you're interested in learning more about Dana, we will have all of her details, how you can contact her, and information about her offerings on the page where you see this interview as well. Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure.